All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Wednesday, December 11th of 2024, and looking ahead here, we have a two-game NBA main slate as well as a two-game NHL main slate, so it should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS-related questions. Get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there is a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim team. So can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. We do this show on Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So tune in any one of those days and get your questions answered. All right, let's get SaberSim up. And we will start jumping into questions. We will start with the questions. We'll probably just start from the top down here. We got one from Sean to start. I got another list of questions that came in the Discord, and we will just work our way from the top down. So Sean said, "Hi, I've been lowering my max salary for NFL Showdowns for DK and FanDuel, and it's been working amazing. That's awesome. I'm going to try the same thing today for NBA, unless do you think that is not optimal? Do we usually get non-maxed salary binks for Showdown?" Oh, wait, two questions here. Okay, so first off, I'm glad it's working for you, right? That is a quick and easy way of accounting for duplication and getting different from the field, which can help you to just retain more of the first place prize when you do win, right? So that's awesome. As far as do I think it's a good idea for today? Well, let's just go back and look at yesterday. So we go back to DraftKings, 2-game slate yesterday. And these are a bunch of contests that I played. And let's just go and look at one, right? So let's go and look at the mini max. All right. So I had 100 entries here, so we'll go 100. Sim ROI, not good. Okay, so what do we see here, right? So we see that duplication is important in this contest, right? 3 dupes, 5 dupes, 6 dupes, 7 dupes, 8, 5, 4, 10, right? So you should be accounting for duplication in some way, shape, or form on these 2-game slates. So I would say that it is a viable thing to do. To come in here and, well, first off, I think accounting for duplication is important. Second thing you got to consider, right? Okay, well, if I come in here and I just look at some of the highest sim ROI sets of lineups, what are the salaries that are being used, right? And the average salaries here are still kind of high, right? 49.5, 49.6, 49.7, a lot in this 49.5 to 49.7 range. So that kind of gives me the impression that chopping max salary here, even on these 2-game slates, is not the best way of accounting for duplication. So based off of just what I'm seeing here, I would probably not do that. But if we saw something different, right? If we came in here and we saw that hey, a lot of the highest sim ROI lineups were actually using a lot less salary, then I would say that's an okay strategy, right? But you can kind of use things that you've seen on past slates to make decisions for future slates, right? So here I would basically advise against that idea for this 2-game based off of what we found. All right. And then this one, do we usually get non-max salary binks? You'd have to look, right? You'd honestly have to go into a contest that you're playing and go and look at past 2-game slates and say hey, how often is this happening? But I think we got a good answer to this one already. All right. So second question for Showdown. Can you go over calculating geomean? I keep getting different results than the videos. Yeah, for sure. So So let's say, we're trying to calculate geomean for a 20,000 entry contest, right? And based off what we're seeing, maybe we want to be in like the 5 dupe range, right? So let's just like put this like right in view. All right. So what I would do is you got to pick the number of dupes you're shooting for, which there's a separate question about this. We'll talk about this a little bit. So let's say I want to do like 5-ish dupes, right? So I would do 5 divided by the number of entries in the contest. Okay. This is in parentheses. So say 20,000. Okay. So you would do parenthesis first, 5 divided by symbol, 20,000, close parenthesis. Okay. You can see it up here. It should look exactly like this. And then you do to the power, which is this X, Y button, parenthesis, 1 divided by the number of players in the lineup, which for a DraftKings Classic NBA slate lineup is 8 players. 1 divided by 8, close parenthesis. Okay, this is how it should look. Now, at this point, you have to click equal again. This 0.125 that you're seeing is 1 divided by 8. So to get this whole formula, click equals again, and then you get a number that's usable, which is like this 35.5 if we round the 6 to the 4, move the decimal places over 2 spots. So 0.3546 would be 35.5 in the SaberSim app when you are doing the geomean. Okay. So that's how you do the formula. All right. Next question. When it comes to min unique players, how does SaberSim determine what players are going to make the roster? Okay, so let's just talk about the way this works a little bit. Let's go back to today. And let's just like build some lineups right here. So we'll build 2,000 lineups. And we're just waiting for these lineups to finish. Uh, 1,700 is good enough. We can cut it off there. All right. So we have our lineups, right? So once the lineups go into the pool, the lineups get ranked by whatever sorting metric is chosen, right? So right now, the lineups are being ranked. One more time. Lineups get built. Lineups get put into the pool. After getting put into the pool, they get ranked by the sorting metric. Okay. Now, what Min Uniques does, well, first off, it's at 1 by default. So what this means is that every lineup in your pool et cetera here, right? What's happening is the builder is looking at the 20 lineups that we're viewing, the top 20 or whatever numbers in your lineups box. And it's saying, okay, how many players different does all of these lineups have from each other? And then does that meet this threshold that we've set? So when I change it, okay, sorry about the buffering. If it doesn't, then it removes the lowest graded lineup. So that would be the 20th lineup, the 19th lineup, right? It starts from the bottom and goes up and then says, hey, lineup 20 has 2 players, doesn't meet the 2-player different threshold from lineup, say 3. So then it goes, okay, let's skip lineup 20 and then let's go down to lineup 21. Does lineup 21 have it? Okay, no. Does lineup 22? Yes. And then it puts that one in the pool, right? So that's how lineups get skipped. based off of whatever min unique number you have set. All right. Let me know if there's any follow-up there. Next question. Hey, Andrew, I'm a longtime FanDuel user, which is where my bankroll currently resides. Is it worth it to move everything over to DK? This is a good question. I would say it depends on, how much action you're getting as far as like low stakes, right? So like you want to play the low stakes contests first, because those are going to be the contests that the best players in the lobby don't have access to, right? So if you are like maxing out the low stakes on FanDuel, yeah, but you find yourself just playing, higher dollar contests because that's all that's left, then I would say, yeah, go and move a portion of it, right? Not all of it, but move some of it over to DraftKings. And then having your money spread out a little bit just helps you to get better action down, because we're always trying to find the softest games possible. And the more low stakes action you can get down, the better. So it is okay to split, your account balances across sites. All right, next question. Hey, Andrew, I have a quick question. When using geomean to account for duplication, how do you determine the amount of dupes to aim for depending on the NBA/NFL contest? Good question. So, there's kind of two ways to do it. Number one would be something similar to I showed like a little bit ago, where you go and you find similar size contests and you're like, hey, average dupes here is like somewhere between, like 5 to 10, and I want to be on the lower side. So I chose 5, right? Another way would be, what is the minimum amount for first place that you're comfortable winning, right? You look at the contest and you're like, it's a $1.20 max. If I win, I at least want to like 10x my entries, right? It's like, okay, well, how many times can you be duplicated and win $200 for first place, right? And then you do the math and you're like, okay, that's about 10 dupes or something, right? Maybe first place was 2,000. Like, okay, if I dupe 10 times, that's a little over 200, right? You don't have to do the math for all the top 10 spots. You just do quick math and divide it by the first place prize alone. So a couple different ways to do it. It's a little subjective as to what the number ends up being, but that would be the way I would think about it. All right, next question. Can you briefly explain how the min-max exposures work with the autofill? I know you mentioned that any min would actually be 100% within a single entry autofill build, but can you go a little deeper into how it affects the max exposure and the MME? Okay, so first thing, we did push an update to our beta site that there is now going to be a toggle to ignore min and max exposures for single entries in autofill. Okay, so that's coming very soon to make that a little bit better. But it's really just the math problem. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you set this to. So I'll explain. So your exposure percentages are always so. For instance, having a player in one lineup in a 20 max is 5% exposure. Okay, having one player in a 3 max is 33.3% exposure. Okay, having one player in a single entry is 100% exposure. Okay, this is the part that you need to remember. Now, what happens here is, you set a 10% minimum exposure to any one player, right? Well, depending on the number of lineups in the contest in your autofill has an impact on how the builder has to meet that requirement, right? So you could have, 50% exposure cap in a 3 max, or I'm sorry. So say we're looking at like 20 lineups, right? And, you know, you want to take somebody from 100% to 50%. Okay. Say I want them in half my lineups. Okay. You know, their exposure goes down to 50%, right? But when you change my lineups to another contest, builder is going one contest at a time, right? 20 max, 3 max, single entry, whatever, et cetera, right? However many contests you're entered into. The exposure calculations are changing, but your minimax exposures are being applied either way. So, okay, here I have 50% of my lineups with the player in the 20 max. Well, if I change this to 3, the 50 holds. Well, 2 out of 3 lineups is 66%. That's too high. So the only thing the builder can do is put that player into one lineup, since one lineup exposure is 33%, right? So 33 is below the 50 mark. So it just all comes down to how much exposure is allowed by your minimax exposures or required, and then what the exposure calculations are for the number of lineups in the contest that you're viewing. So that's the way it works. All right, next question. For NFL DK Showdown, if I believe that 2 low-cost players will be doing better than their projections, what is the best way to adjust that for optimal results? Okay, so two ways to think about this. Number one is, I think these players are too low projected. Well, what do you think their actual projection is, right? What you should do is tell the builder, hey, I think this 200 salary player who's projected for 0.5 points is actually going to score 2 points, right? Then you let the builder say, okay, you know, if they're going to score 2 points, then I think you should roster them at this percentage, right? Which would be your exposure. That in that, you know, approach, that mindset, what you're doing is you're trying to give the builder more accurate inputs and allow it to decide what the right rate to play that player is, if that is true. Now, that doesn't guarantee that they're going to get in your lineup. So if you are coming at it from the other approach of, hey, I want this player in my lineup no matter what, the easiest thing to do is just go in and set a minimum exposure higher than 0% here to whatever percentage you want them in your lineups. That would be the other way to do it. Sean said, should I always filter my ROI to be greater than 0? I do. You know, I think it's a good filter to have. You know, the contest sim is running 100,000 times. And for me, that is a very big sample size. And I trust the data that comes from that. So if you're asking me what I do, I definitely do it. If I do it, I would recommend doing it. And I don't see any reason not to. All right. Taking a peek back in the office hours channel. Looks like there's one more question over there. Let me get that up here in the queue. All right. Question says, when finishing sims and autofilling, do you usually fill the single entry, or let's say the 150 max lineups first, or do you base it strictly on prize pool or top prize? Good question. I personally do it based off of prize pool. So that's what I recommend. You know, prize pool and top prize are typically going to be correlated, just because, you know, the bigger the prize pool, usually the bigger the percentage to first. That's not always true. If the payout structure is flat, then sometimes you could have a high prize pool with a lower percent to first, so that top prize contest comes in a little bit lower. So that does happen. But, you know, this is a little bit of personal preference. You know, if you want to do your single entries first, that's okay, and leave your MMEs to later. I use rank fill a lot. I'm typically okay with if a lineup grades out well in one contest, allowing it to be put into another. That's just, something that I'm personally okay with. That's a risk, management thing. And I'm okay assuming that extra risk. If you'd rather put a unique entry into every lineup like Jordan recommends, and I'm pretty sure, that's something he does religiously, then that's okay, right? Jordan and I have talked a lot, and he's a little more risk averse, and I like to assume a little bit more risk in my lineups. So there's no wrong or right answer there. All right. We are all caught up with questions here. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Good luck in your contest today. I will be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, for our next show. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Until then, good luck. Take care.